Hello and welcome to the start of a beautiful week. Now, there have been many arguments that GM crops is a global cutting-edge technology and its introduction into the country would be a great advantage to Ghana's agricultural growth, drought and pest resistance, as well as high-yielding crops, and not intended to set aside conventional crops, but to increase options that were available to developing countries to improve agriculture. Some have also kicked against GMOs, claiming that the process leading to them are genetically engineering techniques amounting to gross interference in the nature and the natural order, and that heart disease, fibroid, diabetes and cancer, among others, are results of consuming GM foods. Many people are actually saying we have been consuming these foods for a very long time. So what is the fuss anyway? Another component of this debate is that plant breeders bill currently before Parliament. What is it all about, and what is the fate or future of Ghana's agricultural food and safety, security for the nation? We will find out tonight. My name is Nana Sakwa and this is PM Express. Stay tuned for a heated debate. How safe is the food we eat? And that's the topic on the table today. GMOs and plant breeders and plant breeders bill. We're going to get an education on that. And with me to talk about this issue from my extreme left is William Ejipong Kwetu, who is the Deputy Ranking Member of Food, Agric and Cocoa Affairs. He's also an Honorable Member of Parliament for Akim Moda. William, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then to my immediate left is Yao Poku, who's a chairman for Food Sovereignty. Member. That's a member of Food Sovereignty Ghana. He's basically fighting for the plate of food in your kitchen, making sure it's a safe. And me, Nana Sakwa, obviously, here to moderate these two lovely gentlemen. But don't forget, go on to Facebook and look for the JoyNews channel. The topic is there. Let's see what you think about it. Should we introduce it or not? I will start with you, Yao, and say that, well, apparently, since we were growing up, we've always, had GM foods one way or the other. So what is the big deal now if we're trying to regularize it?
Well, thank you, and good evening to your listeners. Let me first say that it is not true that we have been having these GM foods all this while. Let me also take the opportunity to differentiate between biotechnology and GM biotechnology. I think that is where our scientists are not being fair and our parliamentarians are not being fair to Ghanaians. When you come to biotechnology, it's the application of science and technology in breeding and increasing food. We have no problem with that. But the moment you talk about GM biotechnology, it's a different ball game altogether. You are talking about taking a gene from a species into a different species altogether. Now, to give you an example, anytime you see a GM food with the denomination BT, the BT in it is Bacillus thuringiensis. The Bacillus thuringiensis is a bacteria that is in the soil. They have been able to take from this particular bacteria a toxin that they have put in the plant so that any pest, for example, if you see BT cowpea, any pest that eats the leaves of that cowpea BT automatically dies. Or if you have BT cotton, any pest that destroys the cotton and eats that cotton leaves automatically dies. So it is the gene from that bacteria, which is a living thing, completely different from a plant, which has been put into it. This is where our problem is, that when you put this toxin in a plant and human beings eat, right, then you are creating a situation where their health is going to be a problem. And let me cite an example that was given by BBC. On the 8th of November, the Minister for Agri for Burkina Faso was interviewed. The plant breeder Burkina Faso was interviewed. And a farmer, a BT cotton farmer, was also interviewed on BBC on 8th November around 7:25 p.m. The minister and the plant breeder were all for GM. But the farmer said he had 100 cattle. The 100 cattle grazed on his BT cotton farm. 90 had died, leaving only 10. Please check it on BBC news item. Our point is that if cattle would die by eating the leaves of the BT cotton, what will be the effect on human beings when they eat either BT cowpeas or BT potatoes, which have been introduced in Ghana, or the rice, BT rice? I'm putting emphasis on this because these are what is being introduced in Ghana for now, right? The question that has always been asked is this, that, oh, prove that when we eat GM foods, this is the health hazard you would experience. Our answer is this, and I'm going to give you an example. Tomatoes. Everybody knows that tomatoes contain a lycopene, a particular ingredient that is against or helps human beings against prostate cancer. It's well known. Now, if you produce GM tomatoes, different color, different mixtures, if in the next 10-20 years there's increase in prostate cancer, the scientists, they are not going to tell you that this increase in prostate cancer is due to the fact that we are now eating GM potatoes, because they will tell you that there are so many causes of cancer, and therefore could not have been the eating of the GM tomatoes could not have been the cause of the increase in the prostate cancer. But that is where our problem is that, yes, you may not have a one-to-one direct correlation and saying that it's the eating of the GM food that creates this. But the precaution is that once you put this toxin in the cowpea, my brother, what is the quantity of the toxin if it can kill a small insect? What is the quantity of the toxin that a human being has to eat cowpeas in order to have the effect of the negative effect?
Let me bring William in here. William would like to borrow your pen if you don't mind. I mean,
borrow?
He wants to borrow your pen, even though he's going to use it to write pro GMO. But William, let me come to you now while you're writing. William, I have Germany, Japan, Austria, Hungary, Greece, Bulgaria, Luxembourg. All these countries say, forget it. We're not going to take this thing here. So why then do we now think that, oh, it's a good time to sit around the table?
You want to mention countries who are also for GMO?
No. What I'm saying is,
yes,
because you are pro, I'm asking you obviously anti-questions. So what I'm saying is that, and these are sort of big boys who give us aid, and they have proper scientists. Even in case anything happened, they are well resourced to, if any epidemic broke out, they are well resourced to fight it. They won't even need anybody to come and help them. And they are saying, no, we don't want it. Do you think Ghana, this is the time to go and sit around the table and say, yep, as for us, bring it to us, we want it?
Well, thank you for your question. Shall I say good evening to all your listeners?
Of course.
Particularly
of course.
Those within my constituency. You see, I don't know. When I was called this evening, and I was asked, are you for GMO foods? And I said, I'm for science. That's what I said.
Okay.
I said, I'm for science. Any innovation that will come through science, as long as it is tested and proven, I'm for it. That is why, of course, I spent some time to study science, even at my first degree, and move on, because, of course, in Ghana, science doesn't pay. I have to join the businessmen. Those who make some money to take care of my people back in the village. But you see, I don't think anybody in Ghana is saying that we should bring in GMO at this particular moment. The Plant Breeders Bill doesn't say that when it is passed, it means that it has accepted GMO. I don't think Ghanaians have had a discussion on a round table saying that, hey, we are going to accept GMO. No. It is GMO is a discussion all over the world. In fact, it is a war between European countries and America. And we are also sitting here fighting their war for them. But as a scientist, what I understand by GM is that, you see, my senior brother was talking about putting a gene, or I will always use a gene because I'm a scientist, some character, and you kept mentioning toxin. Toxin is something that which means poison. But you see, what they put in there may not always be a toxin. It is a characteristic that a living thing possesses, that you want to put into another living thing, that will impart that same characteristic to it, such that it will be able to resist something or improve upon its being. Okay? And that is simply what you call a gene. And so a gene can be removed right from the DNA of any living thing into the DNA of another thing. This is done in plant breeding since Adam. And how were they doing it? They were doing it by what they call the conventional method, by crossing a plant A or animal A with what? B. Okay, I wish I had a diagram here. You see, if there is a plant having a certain characteristic, that gene, and you want it in this plant so that it will be able to resist drought or something, when you are going to transfer it, they call it crossing and back crossing. It takes sometimes between 10 to 15 years to get it done. Now, technology has developed. That's what they call the biotechnology. And this can be done in a day. Okay, you take out the gene or the DNA of this straight away and you plant it into that one and get it done. It is the same way as going through the conventional method for 12 or so years. That is biotechnology or genetic engineering. And so when it happens this way, then it is labeled genetically modified. The plants we have been eating, the varieties that we have in tomatoes and all those things, by going through the conventional method with that old method, it's the same thing. So in principle.
If it's that simple, why are superpower countries all over EU is rejecting it? If it's that simple.
Yes, that is what they are saying. But you see, recently, the former scientists of this country, the Dr. Lassans, who was what do you call it, the Director General former Director General for CSR, the current Director General, Crop Research Institute, and they all came to us in Parliament. In fact, they met the smaller group, which is the Agric Committee, coming to more or less explain what GM is all about. You know, the Agric Committee, some of us are on the committee not because probably we are scientists, but because of we do a range of things, agribusiness and all that. And so there are several people there. Many of us do not understand GM foods. In fact, if you come to Parliament today, I'll tell you that you can get about 10% of us understanding what GM foods are all about. We all need to be lectured on that for us to understand the concept. But I must tell you that even if you do understand the concept, Ghana has not had any forum to discuss whether we should accept GM foods or not. It's just speculation. This bill that people are equating to the GM has, you see, a scientist is using a certain model of processes to develop varieties. And after that, they are asking for the government to give them protection. It is one of the most parts of this world. Okay? And Ghana is a treaty, it's part of that treaty. But we have not been able to come out with a bill, a law, to protect any person who, through his own initiative, develops a variety and say that, hey, give me some kind of protection, so that even one day if I'm dead and gone, my children can benefit from it. That's what they are seeking to do. But one of the processes of coming out of this variety may include that genetic modification. You understand me? So the genetic modification, in a way, is somewhat embedded in plant breeding. It's one of the methods by which you can come out with a variety. But this bill in itself is not bringing in, it's not a bill that is asking Ghanaians to adopt GM.
Okay, I'll leave, I'll get Yao to...
Can I have a reaction?
Yeah, of course. I'll get you to come
in. My problem with my honorable are two. The first is that anytime you use the GM biotechnology, you should differentiate it from general biotechnology. What he explained is general biotechnology, and there's no problem. But the moment you use GM, you are taking a gene from a species into a different species altogether. So if you take a species, for example, from a cattle, and you put it in a plant, a cow is not the same as a plant. They are two different species. That is when GM becomes GM, right? So anytime you use the word GM, you should not confuse it with ordinary general biotechnology, where we are breeding plants and plants. Let's say citrus, we have different kinds of citrus from one citrus to another. But the moment you cross over and use a gene from an animal into a citrus, then it becomes genetically modified. But the second question that my honorable did not answer, which I want to draw attention to, is the fact that Ghana has signed the World Trade Organization Treaty. And by signing the World Trade Organization, the treaty, we are obliged by the treaty to pass certain laws. They call it TRIPS, the Trade-Related Intellectual Property Rights. There are 7 of them. Ghana has passed 6, including the biosafety law at 831. The last one that is left to be passed is the Plant Breeders Bill. And the parliamentarians themselves, in their own memorandum, have indicated that, oh, it was an oversight, that they overlooked this Plant Breeders Bill, which will also grant intellectual property rights to plant breeders. So let us first be clear that if we are passing, or we are so eager to pass this Plant Breeders Bill as an obligation under the WTO treaty. Secondly, in their own memorandum, they have made it quite clear that they want to privatize plant breeding. In Ghana, it is mostly done by the CSIR. In their own memorandum, they are saying that, oh, they want to open it for entrepreneurs and for investment in plant breeding, which tells you that it is just, they want to go beyond making it just producing innovation by opening up the market widely. And if you look at the law particularly, please look at section 4 of the law, where they actually indicate, let me rather quote it correctly, 9, the 9B and C. They correctly explain that it is the holder of a plant breeder, or a person can apply to be a plant breeder if he is a foreign citizen or a resident in the territory of a party to a treaty to which the Republic is party. So a citizen of any country at all that is a party to a treaty that Ghana is also a party to that treaty. Now the C says that a legal entity that has its registered office within the territory of a party to a treaty to which the Republic is a party. So it means that you can be a company, but if your company comes from a country that is a member of a country or a treaty that has been signed by Ghana, then you can also register as a plant breeder. That should tell you the scope which this plant breeding, it is not mainly limited to Ghana, but to make it possible for people all over the world to come to Ghana to come and do the plant breeding.
Let me pause here, and then when I come back, William would obviously shed some light onto that. Stay tuned. Hello, and your comments are fast coming on Facebook, and keep it coming. I will be reading them out as the show goes on. This is McDonald Badaku says, why won't we die young? And then a free year says, we don't like it. It says, we don't like it, my friend. Kowenu St. Mensa says, I heard Bagni saying it wasn't GMO, but plant breeders bill. Can anyone explain to me the difference between these two? Edmond says, if top officials who serve in UN are talking to you, you believe them more than me. Meanwhile, they are pushing this devilish agenda. God is watching them and have a lot of spokesmen that have paid heavily to defend them. Shame unto them. Massa, we don't like them. This is Pakwesi. And Nola says the West should just bomb us, finito. And then this Wumpinini says, I'm not against GM food, but it should not undermine the local production of food. Solomon says we just don't need it. Simple. Iris says after this they will legalize gay and lesbianism and say it's their right. Fire burn them all. And let me go to Bonti. Bonti Benjamin says, what has happened to the black man is capable of managing his own affairs mantra that we can produce what we eat right here on our shores, weeping for Mother Ghana. This is Sotag says GMO will make us weak, sick, and later kill us. And this is Oba Gamili. He says, we don't need it. This will only be another form of colonialism and imperialism. Enough of the rubbish being dumped on the continent of Africa. We have slept for far too long. We need to develop storage facilities, construct roads, etc., to help our local farmers. We cannot hold back anyone to supply our farmers with seeds, etc. Plants. We want it natural. I'll be reading it as the show goes on, but I'll let you react to these clauses in there that anyone who comes up with a seed or a strategy, be it a company, so far as they are in a country which we have a treaty with, can come in, get a license, and then supply seeds.
Yeah, I'll come to that, but let me first talk more about what we understand by GMO foods. He made allusion to the fact that what I explained wasn't really GM, but you see, anything that transfers any characteristics of a DNA of one living organism to another living organism is GM.
So it could be plant to plant?
Yes, it could be plant to plant. It could be animal to plant. It could be plant to animal. It's GM. That is because you are modifying the genetic makeup of that particular living organism.
Yes.
But you understand my point?
Yes.
That's what it means.
Yes.
Yes. And so that is GM. Now, going back to what I said initially, if we do it by that crossing and back crossing several times and to get that gene of this plant to that, it is also, of course, modified. But that may take 10 years. But now, genetic engineering has proven that people have a means of doing it in 10 hours in a very short time. So that is what I want people to understand, that is what it means by genetic modification. Okay? And it could be done from plant to animal. But from what he's saying, I think they will have every concern to show, because if you are taking the gene of an animal to put into a plant, of course, the characteristics may not be the same. And that is where some religious bodies also come strongly they come against it in the sense that they think that you are probably changing the totality of what God did in nature. But you see, given this climate change that we have now, it is affecting everything. And so scientists are putting their brains at work seriously. And so if scientists more or less research into certain things and come out with innovations that are tested and proven, okay, to me as a scientist, I'll go for it. As long as the positives are weighed against the negatives, and it is proven that, of course, we stand to gain more than to lose. Before we went on screen, we were discussing something. You said CFCs, and you were talking about DDT. I said, yes, life is dynamic. And so, at times, certain things that science have proven may be good. At a certain point in time, you see that the organisms that innovation was developed to cure or to tackle would have adapted, like chloroquine. We are no more using chloroquine and other things. Yes. And so it comes to a point, it fades out. And then new innovations will do what? Will come in. It's all based on scientifically proven research that is done.
How about the licensing where, you know, I could...
Yes, so I'm not coming to that. You see, so here, like initially we said, if you look at the memorandum that this plant breeders brought to Parliament through the Attorney General, of course, they stated that Ghana is a signatory to the WTO treaty. And then this thing happened somewhere in the 1950s.
Okay,
and
1990.
Yeah, I mean, it has been revised until 1999. And Ghana was more or less one of the few countries that has signed to that treaty but have not been able to carve their bill or law to send it to that organization for it to be enforced. And so here what we are saying is that anybody who intends to develop any variety, okay, in Ghana here, as long as you belong to a country that belongs to that treaty, and you are able to come into Ghana here to partner anybody here in Ghana using our material in Ghana here to develop a new variety, then of course you can also apply for the right to be protected. That is what the clause that he mentioned means. But you cannot come from a country that is not part of that treaty. In the same way, Ghanaians can also go to countries within those go to countries that belong to that treaty, and then also, of course, use the scientists there with your own, of course, brains to develop varieties, and you can have the right over there. That's all that this section of the bill is saying. So it is not like exclusive to Ghanaians. But of course, Ghanaians could also exclusively develop their own variety and have the right to it and be protected. The clause you raised, that is the meaning of it. We need to share ideas.
Let me read his Oba Gameli, Live Well, funny enough, Live Well Brookings. And he says, we don't need it. This will only be another form of colonialism and imperialism. Enough of the rubbish. He says, enough of rubbish being dumped on the continent of Africa. Now this is where I like. We have slept for too long. We need to develop storage facilities, construct good roads, etc. to help our local farmers. At the moment, we can only store 35 tons of the 400 tons of grain that we save. What do we need?
Yes, you see, we are not saying that GMO is a panacea to all our problems, agricultural problems. No, that's not what you are saying. But it is one of the means that scientists have developed to meet certain challenges in agriculture or in science in general. Okay, of course, in Ghana here, we have several challenges that we have to resolve if we want to maintain our food security. If we want to ensure sustainability of our security, we need to do all this and that Gamali is mentioning. It is very, very important. But to me, you see, people saying that we have passed the GMO bill, we have passed GMO bill. I don't think the GMO bill is in this plant breeders bill. If anything at all, if there's a bill that has been passed, and it was alluded to in Parliament last week, it's the biosafety law that was passed in 2012. I was in Parliament then. This is my first time being in Parliament. Embedded in that law is the total protection of biotechnology. And GMO is in that law. And so Ghana as a whole, if you want to talk about GMO as a whole, a platform should be created. Then we dialogue seriously and say we don't want it. So that it becomes something like, for all the methods, all the processes that are used in developing plants or any variety, be it animal or whatever, don't use GM method. And the country will save from that. If we don't have that platform and we don't enact that law, then it means that by the Biosafety Act that they passed in 2012, then everybody or anybody can use that means,
I'm going to bring you in, but just one more.
I want to explain this issue as to whether GM biosafety law, which specifically deals with GM, is different from the plant breeders bill. I have heard Honorable Babin making a heavy weather of the point that, oh, plant breeders bill has nothing to do with GM foods. I beg to differ, because you see, if you look at
there's a clause, of course.
Yes,
there's a clause in there.
Yes, there's a clause in there.
23.
But, yes, 22. But apart from that, if you look at the bill, Section 3, it defines what is meant in terms of variety.
In terms of variety, yes.
Yeah, it says that a variety shall not be deemed suitable for the purpose of the protection of a plant breeder right unless it must be new, it must be distinct, it must be uniform, and must be stable. These are the characteristics.
Yes.
Then if you go to 34, it doesn't mention GM foods, but it talks about denominations. So, for example, designation of varieties by denomination. So, if you write BT204 or maize, and you give it a denomination, right? You may not need to call it GM. And let me give you an example. I feel very sorry that Ghanaian Times published in the papers, I've forgotten the exact date, the Maruka variety of cowpeas. They gave it a complete name, complete denomination, but it's a GM. Last Friday, just this Friday, Times, the back page of Ghanaian Times, where Professor Alassane talks about varieties, new varieties, and so on, he does not go straightly and say that I'm dealing with GM foods. That is where the deception is. You see, because they have known that the moment people are talking about GM foods and talking about beauty, why should I continue saying GM foods or designating it as new variety? But if I say a new variety, and the law says that if you give it any denomination, you do not need to say that this is GM foods. Once you give it any denomination under Section 34, you are fine, and it's taken care of by the law. And as you have pointed out, look, if you look at the Section 22, the plant breeders' right and what constitutes it, they don't mention it specifically.
Yes.
You see, but do we need it to be written black and white that is GM food, when in actual fact and indeed you are dealing with GM foods? It's a deception that we are having problems with.
So that is what I'm saying that. That's why I'm saying that. You see, as a country, we need to all come to a table, a serious discussion.
No, but the table, you are in Parliament, so that's the table.
But you see, if you take this bill as it is, and you read through critical, like he's saying, he sees that you can read through and give some meaning to it, that it may include GM. Of course. So because it doesn't exempt.
What's the view throwing it out and bring it back?
Yes, the bill doesn't explicitly say that 1, 2, 3 except GM. There's nothing like that stated. And so if someone went ahead to do an innovation and comes up with a new variety by using a GM method, the person is right and can register it. Yes. Have the right for it. Yes. That's what this bill is all about. This bill is talking about whatever means.
But Parliament seems to be in support with that.
You see, this bill is coming from somebody. It's coming from some group, scientists, plant breeders. And we are seeking,
because of their interest.
Not because of their interest.
Because of their interest.
Of course, you work, I work, and I want to protect it. Whatever I do.
No, of course.
If I came out of with a new method of...
Honorable, I must be honest with you. Very, very honest. Before we started this, we wrote to CSIR to find out who and what is being done. The letter we received back said that Arcadia, which is an American agribusiness into seed multiplication, is sponsoring the testing of cowpeas as to how nitrogen they can fix with nitrogen and so on. And that they are being sponsored and paid to do that research. And your law in 9.4 makes it possible for an agent to be appointed by the foreign company or foreign whatever agribusiness to undertake. There's also a provision for contractual agreements to sign a contract to handle these crops and things like that by these foreign agents, or be given licenses by these foreign agreements. So when you have a situation like this, what does it tell you?
Before William comes in, we're going to take a break here, and then when we come, William, on top of you, and I want to find out, well, how did Achampong do this operation, Feed Yourself? I mean, we did it ourselves, and we were self-sufficient enough to even think of exporting. So why then do we need some super-duper food in our kitchen? Stay tuned. How safe is the food we eat? And that's the topic we are talking about. And I'm talking to William Ejipong Kwechu, who is MP for Akimoda and also Deputy Ranking Member for Food, Agric and Cocoa Affairs. To my immediate left is a member of Food Sovereignty Ghana, Yao Opoku. If I go onto Facebook, Deborah Kabute says they should not even try introducing the GM something. They just want to kill us and nothing else. Yao Perry, if they have made up their minds to do it, there is nothing that we will say which will make them back off the project. And then Fifi Junior says, well, will it help our nation in any way? Upon all the foodstuffs we produce in the country, and yet some of the farmers don't get good accessible roads to bring their food home, yet we are going to bring some different genetic food. Will that help us at all? God help us. I think you were going to say something, would it?
Yes, what I'm saying is that I want to allay the fears of all Ghanaians for this Plant Breeders Bill. You see, I'm talking as if I'm part of the committee that is on, but once it has come on the floor of Parliament and we are all discussing it, I'll have to talk, of course, as a member of the House. Last week, or was it last 2 weeks, you know, when you raise your issues, the Speaker put a hold on the discussion of this, the debate on the bill. And we formed a committee involving all the DS to more or less listen to the views of all the organizations that brought some memos and protests against the bill. And so they had a meeting and they listened to all of them. They assembled almost all the country's top scientists. And at that meeting, I heard they did it live on GTV for 2 hours, isn't it, last week or so. And they allayed the fears of all Ghanaians, telling them that this bill is not a bill that seeks to bring the practice of genetic GMOs in Ghana. And so all the clauses that he's raising here are going to be relooked. And so when it is done, before the bill will be passed, the main motive of this bill is to protect the plant breeder. So that person, I mean, it will create some kind of competition among them. For now, everybody who works for, who does any work within this plant breeding, works for the government. CSR, Crop Research Institution, SADA, several research organizations. And so when they do this, more or less, they think that the varieties developed belong to the government. And people will pick them, go and recycle them anyhow. Nobody pays any royalties. Meanwhile, Ghana is a member of WTO, and we struggle to pay our fees. So if these new breeds are protected, new varieties are protected, and anyone who wants to come and pick it and go anywhere, like you find a yam in Brazil, you find a cassava and other things. Look at Guinness using various varieties of cassava in breeding this fruit cassava. What have they paid? That is what they are trying to protect. You are using that variety on commercial basis, big time business. It's a new innovation in Ghana. It is going to be replicated in Nigeria and elsewhere. What has Guinness paid on that to those who develop those cassava varieties that they are using? This is what the Plant Breeders Bill seeks to do. if you are only going to use for commercial purpose, then you must pay something for it. So at least the person who wasted his time and knowledge to develop it can also have something. And the government, if the person is working for the government at that time, you know, the variety will belong to the government, and a certain percentage will probably belong to.
Are these the varieties that, if I came up with it, every season you come to me to buy, or are these a variety where you can dry and replant?
Yes, you see, if someone develops a new variety, the varieties, some of the varieties are such that after 1, 2, 3 years, of course, the yield on the field will decline. And therefore, you have to go and buy again. If you take oil palm, for instance, I have some oil palm. I work with CSR. I told you I was a commercial manager there for at least for some time, 99, 2000. Oil Palm Research Institute at Kwai. No, not at Kwai. Kusi and Takrasi.
Okay.
You see, anytime you're going to plant a new farm on oil palm, you have to go there and go and buy some seeds. You cannot just go and pick seeds under a very good yielding oil palm plantation and say we are going to plant it. You get nothing. Okay? Because the scientists will have to cross and get new seeds for you to go and buy. That is straight ahead. And then oil palm is not like maize where every year you have to recycle and it. There are some, you see, Ghana has a law regarding our seeds. Seed protection is at Pukwasi here.
Yeah.
Yes. And they have given the right to people, like private people, to grow certain varieties that they generate. When they breed those varieties, you go, they propagate it, and people come to buy and then go and plant. If you want to get high yield every year, if you are a serious farmer every year, you have to go and buy a new one. And because, of course, the difference in yield after successive years is such that it will decline. We want to do that. If I'm going to farming and I'm a serious farmer, of course, I always want to go and buy the fresh one and then go and plant. Because they are saying that one will probably give you about, say, 1,000 tons of maize per hectare. But if you recycle the following year, you're going to get about 800 tons. If you recycle the following year, you're going to get about 700 tons. Why do I go in and recycle? If you don't have the money, just go and recycle. After some time, you see that your yield is coming down. And nobody is forcing you to go back and buy from them.
Yeah, why don't you want to protect intellectual
with
property?
all respect, let me differ from what my honorable is saying. The law says something different from what you are saying. You see, if you look at the law, if you look at 21(3), it only suggests that you can only use it for your personal use.
Yes.
For your personal use.
Yes.
You cannot sell, you cannot import, you cannot export, you cannot offer for sale, you cannot use it for anything.
Because it is not yours.
Yeah, because it's not yours. Fine. But it goes on to say that, you see, for whatever you want to do with it, you have to obtain the authorization. You have to be authorized by the owner of that plant. What they have also gone ahead to do, which the parliamentarians are not saying. I read on the 25th December 2013 an article by a plant breeder. I think he was honest in saying that the plant breeders intentionally put in it a terminator gene. And that terminator gene, you can read it, 25th of December. It was on the Ghana web. That terminator gene would ensure that if you do not go for authorization or you do not go to buy the new seed for every year, what you will grow will not yield.
No, but it depends.
Let me land. Apart from the authorization, they have stated quite clearly in Section 26 of the bill that the plant breeder has to, by a statutory declaration, state the royalty he wants to charge for the use of the particular variety he has produced. He has a right to dictate how much royalty you must pay. And we of food sovereignty ask ourselves.
We need to run up, so if you just run it up.
Those of food sovereignty say this, that even for our minerals in Ghana, if you look at the minerals and mining law, it says that the royalty should be 3 to 6%. But with the plant breeders bill, Section 26, it says that the plant breeder would have to, by statutory declaration, state how much royalty must be paid. And once he states the royalty that must be paid and files it with the registrar, that is what must be paid. It's open-ended.
No, but
so how can we in this country
Gentlemen,
live
I
under
give
that
you
circumstance?
30 seconds to just round it up.
But you see,
give you the last word, 30
yes,
seconds.
What you're saying is that the person has come out with a product, more or less, and want to sell it at this price.
Yes.
He knows what went into it.
Yes.
That is why he's pricing it.
Is it royalty or selling? Because
Royalty.
But it's two different
The
things.
royalty.
Royalties.
No, royalty is different.
Royalty you
Royalty
are
is what
going
you
to pay for it.
to the land, and selling is different.
Yes.
No, here is the royalty which you are selling. You see, I have come out with a variety.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And anybody at all can come and pick it and go and commercialize it. You see, the key word here is commercialization. You are going to commercialize it.
It's not stated there, say royalty. Statutory declaration
I
of the
think we need
royalty.
to come
you
back
have
on
to
another
pay.
day to continue this debate. But the question was, how safe is your food? And obviously, I had William Ejapon Kwetu, MP for Akimoda, Deputy Ranking Member for Food, Agric and Cocoa Affairs in the studio, helping us. And then I had Yao Poku, who's a member of Food Sovereignty Ghana. Thank you very much for watching. And as I said, tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.
Honorable. I said,
No. Better.